All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Linda.
Kristen Cambenzi,
Here.
Glenn Sarka,
Yeah.
James Hewitt,
Here.
Jennifer Cliff,
Here.
Jennifer Ray,
Here.
Cheryl Maddox Smith,
Here.
Jason Zadunik,
Here.
Okay, and I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
Motion made by Mrs. Klipp, support by Mr. Sarka. All those in favor? Aye. And I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Committee of the Whole of December 4th, 2023.
I would move to approve the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of December 4th, 2023.
Second.
All right, motion made by Mr. Sarka, support by Mrs. Maddox Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to new business.
Oh, I would just note one thing. I think we had a change on the agenda just as to the dates. The printed agenda indicates 2023, and I think we've had them corrected to 2024. So the agenda just has announcements and other meetings that may need to be corrected later on.
Okay. So then, so for the official minutes, we'll just make sure that the times, the dates are 2024.
I actually corrected it already on the official agenda.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Moving on to new business, consider adoption of the Truen Law Firm Policy Manual Resolution.
I'll make a motion to consider the adoption of the Truen Law Firm Policy Manual Resolution.
Support. Okay, motion made by Mrs. Klipp, support by Ms. Ray.
Would the motion be to adopt or just to consider?
Well, we would be adopting them. So, and then further discussion. So I guess we could probably give the public a little bit as to what we're doing here. So we will be, if this motion passes, we would be transitioning to the Truen Law Firm Policy Manual, which would replace our current policy manual, which is kind of a cobbled together of some Neola policies and some true policies too. Mr. Sedgwick, do you have anything?
Sure. As the board is aware, we work almost exclusively with Truen on everything related to our bylaws, our operations, finance, labor, working through a variety of student-related matters, discipline, various protected, rights that they have, attendance, grades, you name it. We work with Truen significantly and have found anomalies or found some of our policies outdated, not pertinent or not as accurate as we would like when working with the attorneys, the Truen attorneys. So after going around this multiple times, we felt it was prudent to go ahead and make the transition to provide them really what they need, what we need, so that they can better support us when it comes to interpretation of policy, enforcement of policy.
And then just for the rest of the board, the executive committee met with Mr. Sedgwick and four attorneys from Truen to go over the huge manual. So we feel pretty confident with the manual that was presented.
Linda and I participated in a 4-hour-long webinar even prior to that meeting, and were able to get a lot of legwork done. Like Mrs. Cambenzi said, the executive committee was part of that conversation with the 4 attorneys, and we really reviewed the checklist of items that needed to be addressed in order to make the transition.
And it helps them be more efficient when they're serving us, because they know what's in our policies. They've had input into it. If there's an issue, it allows them to be more responsive and I think more efficient. And I think other boards, I think Nagani has also taken this step. So it's something that other boards have done.
As has Marisa,
And
our
Marisa as
Risa,
well.
yeah.
Zach, does this represent a cost savings to the district by combining all of our legal?
You could definitely make the argument that it does. We wouldn't incur the cost of Neola, and we are paying for Troon policies piecemeal, so there's some cost savings in buying the whole policy service. I don't have exact numbers for the difference, or the comparables, but I could certainly get that for you if you would like it. It is cost effective for us, not to mention the time it takes for attorneys to go through our current policies versus their, frame of reference, knowing that their own policies well.
Thank you.
Right, I would just add in the short, personal observation from our meeting going through it, whenever we had questions regarding any of the litany of policies that were in it, they all knew them basically, off the top of their head, inside and out. So it was pretty impressive actually to hear that retained knowledge and recallability. So.
Okay, so we do have motion and support. Do we have to read the entire resolution as is, or can we just say adopt?
I think we can say adopt the Truen resolution as presented.
Okay. So we have motion and we have support. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, moving on to the rebranding process. So just to kind of recap where we're at. So on January 22nd, we officially named the Sentinels as our new nickname. Since then, we have been kind of working through the process with the name. Today, thanks to some generous donations from community members, we were able to get the students and staff at the high school were able to get over 1,100 t-shirts with the Sentinels on it. So I think that's pretty exciting. And from all the feedback that I've heard, the students were excited to get them. So I just want to thank the generous community members that donated anonymously to purchase the shirts. So moving on with the nickname and now going towards a new logo and potential mascot. I think at our last meeting we did request that if anyone has any logos that they would be interested in seeing as representing the Sentinels, that they could submit them to schoolboard@mapsnet.org. So we just want to reiterate that we are looking for logos and ideas to represent the Sentinels name. And then any comments from the board members about the process and kind of maybe what we're looking for a potential logo/mascot?
I know when you kind of follow up with, or follow along with everything from emails to discussions to social media comments, there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of different things. A couple of people approached me and it certainly sparked my interest, sort of the idea of either a crest or some kind of shield that may be able to utilize some of our well-known landmarks in the area. I know that one of the concerns or hopes was that we would be able to make something very, very specific to Marquette. I think that's a really good point. I did a count on this in December. I believe there are only 11 American school districts on Superior's coast, where the town is actually located, at the coast itself and not just part of the watershed. And that, of course, would span, from the eastern part of the UP all the way up through Minnesota. It may have actually been 9. I'd have to look back at my notes, but that puts us in a pretty exclusive category. So I would love to see the artists in our community and the artistic thinkers in our community really create something that is specific to our area. And that was just, a couple different people brought up the shield or kind of a crest, and I thought, wow, that really does open opportunity for some of our visual landmarks to be represented. So I would love to see if somebody could submit some of their ideas about those.
I think I'm lit, so I'll go. Just trying to, the kind of a time frame of some sort, and I know we've did that, really well, as this kind of rolled out the last 2 months of when things were going to happen and how to do that, and incorporating the students was pretty profound, and I think they loved being a part of that. However, we can kind of incorporate them again through the process of narrowing them down and ideas, that kind of thing. Just again, the kids incorporated.
Mrs. Maddox Smith, any comments?
Not really. I guess in response kind of to what Jen was saying, as far as imagery and mascots goes, I would like to see something where we're getting some ideas from the kids. So I don't know, is there a way that we can, they don't necessarily listen to the board minutes. That's kind of not their jam. They're busy with school and friends and sports. I'm just wondering if there's a way to maybe morning announcements, something to maybe fire them up a little bit, because we've got some great kids, very creative kids.
Yeah, I mean, possibly we could reach out to the student council again and get them on board to kind of help us facilitate some of those things. I think that some of them do the morning minutes or the morning announcements, so that maybe we can craft like a message or they can craft a message to get out to their fellow students to kind of start percolating some ideas. And then, yeah, definitely getting them involved and narrowing down the process.
Would it be worth putting out another, I don't want to call it a press release because that sounds so formal, but maybe kind of an all call on our social media, or really just to get the energy going?
Yeah, I'm sure we could craft something and put it out. Mr. Hewitt?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to say at this point. I think kind of how we have initiated this is like a crowdsourcing type of a event, just kind of like how we did the prior process. So I think we'll have to allow for enough time to see what results come in, see how many, volume, probably give us some new ideas, and then probably have to come together and have just additional follow-up and see how we want to kind of create those future timelines and maybe set some parameters or other processes to figure out a way to narrow things down. So,
Mr. Zdenek?
I think my microphone's still on. I had several inquiries in response to the meeting that we had in regards to the name change, as well as the new mascot, and that was cost. I know that the cost of the process has been brought up in previous meetings as well. Whether it's Mr. Sedgwick or Mr. Lampman, are we compiling that information or keeping track of that from your office?
Yes, we are, with the help of high school administration, athletic director, our business department at central office. I have been tracking those numbers internally and can provide you some of that information now or at a later time, depending on your preference.
Maybe we could finish just the general logo conversation and then we can jump to the costs that we've incurred so far
Yeah, I didn't have anything further on the.
on the logo.
Ads.
Okay. Mr. Sarka?
We'll know it when we see it. You know, just let's get as many submissions as possible. I would just ask people, don't troll us, don't send stuff that you're just sending us stuff to annoy us, or, you know, be serious. There's some really good things that could be done, but I just look forward to seeing the submissions. Some of the stuff I've seen already is really great. And, you know, there can be maybe some tweaks we want to do. I think one of our priorities is, needs to be a logo not with just a guy, because that leaves women out, you know, so be aware of some of those things. You know, a helmet, a shield, you know, some people have talked about, you know, the lighthouse is their preference. You know, just be creative. I was surprised by how many good names we have, and I'm sure we'll be surprised at how many good logos we'll get.
Thank you. Yeah, so as Mr. Zdenek mentioned, we have been getting some questions about the cost of the rebranding. You know, I think Mr. Sedgwick, if you want to kind of go over some of the costs that we have incurred. And also the public should also keep in mind that a lot of these costs are costs that we would have incurred anyway, because everything has a lifespan. And so, you know, we have a system in place for replacing uniforms on a rotating basis. And, you know, this, while it seems like we've only been dealing with this nickname change for the past 6 months, it has been something that's been kind of lingering in the background for over 25 years. And so there has been stuff that has been done previously over the course of the 25 years to kind of get us to where we're at right now. So, Mr. Sedgwick?
Sure, of course. Well said, Mrs. Cambenzi. The costs incurred, no surprise, some signage, banners, legal fees, websites, printed materials, mostly uniforms. Like Mrs. Cambenzi said, you're gonna see some of those costs inherently from every year. There's still some costs left, of course. One notable is track. We know we're gonna have to replace some track uniforms, so that's still coming for spring. Otherwise, we've covered the sports as far as what would be necessary for making the transition. Mrs. Cambenzi alluded to a long history of addressing this topic, so we have been moving to the Block M for quite some time. That definitely alleviated a lot of what I think a district would typically incur for this type of rebrand. But based on my approximation, and this would be a high-end estimate, just to start at the highest number for where we're at so far, approximately $40,000 is what we saw in the costs broken down by those different categories.
And how many of those uniforms do you know were already up for, you know, reordering because of where?
Well, we know for sure that football, we incurred more costs than we typically would, because the uniforms with varsity, JV, and freshmen, typically varsity uniforms are replaced somewhat frequently. I don't know about annually, but we already had ordered varsity uniforms.
Sure.
But instead of trickling down or hand-me-down type process with JV and freshmen, because all the uniforms needed to be replaced, we incurred a greater cost for football. The other sports, I don't know exactly which sports were lined up to be replaced or not, but again, for a district our size, I don't think, even with the anomaly of football and some of the legal fees and signage that wouldn't typically be incurred, I don't think a district our size, I don't think $40,000 is necessarily outrageous, certainly for a rebranding.
Yeah, I've also seen a lot of folks, you know, sort of floating these large numbers, 250 or 500,000, and I know that I'm not the only one on the board who certainly took those, did their research and took those into consideration even before a July vote. And to President Cambenzi's point, so much of our uniforms, our signage, our stationery, right on down has been Block M. I think it's really important that when people take into consideration what could cost to do a large rebranding like this, you're really talking about, when you get those numbers, flipping colors. So that, for instance, if we somehow moved from, to green and white, you're talking about ripping up gym floors, turf, repainting walls, redoing stationery, replacing all scoreboards, replacing all signage. And that just isn't an issue for us because our colors didn't change and so much of our branding was centered with that Block M. Certainly, in fact, I know that I heard from community members that were, gosh, I really wish you would have changed the color. And I personally, that would have been something that I would have never voted for because it would have been so fiscally irresponsible. You would very easily, when you just even informally walk around a high school or the district at large and start adding up what it would cost to rip these things up, change turf, again, gym floors, just bleachers. Our bleachers are all red at the high school at least. You can see how that cost would get to be easily $500,000, but that's just not the boat we're in, and it's not the boat we've really ever been in. So.
Well, I appreciate that information thus far. Certainly that number, will change down the road, but at least thus far, that's where we're at, and somebody is keeping track of that. So, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and I guess kind of, back to what I kind of said earlier, everything has a lifespan. So, I mean, eventually there are going to be things that we'll be replacing that will cost more money, but it'll also be something that we would need to do anyway. Like the gym floor, eventually that's going to have to be replaced. Eventually our turf is going to need to be replaced. And when it's replaced, would we put Sentinels or a different logo or stick with our Block M? There will be costs associated to that, but it's also kind of the run-of-the-mill stuff that we would have to pay at some point in time anyway.
And the football issue is kind of a little bit of bad timing. Football varsity had just ordered new uniforms. They had Redmond on them, and it just was a matter of bad timing. Is that accurate?
Right, I think it was actually the pants.
Yeah.
And so it was really, they came as a set, but we had more or less already committed to the purchase. So I don't know that, again, it's gonna show up on this spreadsheet where I say I was conservative on the high end as far as the cost. I think you could make an argument that we could bring that number down, at least, to the tune of the cost of varsity uniforms, football uniforms, that is.
Yeah, and then, I mean, also on our list, it looks like there's the MSHS Spirit Store, where we had bought a lot of the stock that said Redmond and Rodettes on it. So, I mean, that was a cost that we wouldn't normally have incurred.
Well, and we are all aware that there are grants out there and funding if and when needed, and people willing to help, do those applications. So, I mean, that's another factor is that if there was, even if it is just doing the floors, because it's the time to do them, not because it's just the Block M, so it doesn't have to be replaced, but, we might as well utilize these grant funds out there too. I mean, there's no reason not to. So I do want to kind of keep that as part of the conversation as well.
Yeah, and to clarify that, I know another bit of misinformation that's been out there is that we have applied for those grants, and I've heard that they have been they'll be funneled through NMU. None of that's true. We haven't applied for a single grant. If you've been at the board meetings in the summer and early fall, we had some promises, but my understanding is we haven't taken advantage of any of those promises made that with help from tribes or whomever. We haven't taken a single cent and we haven't applied for a single cent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, and with our new policies in place too, I believe that, what was the threshold? Over-
10,000?
Over
I think
$10,000.
it's 5.
Over $5,000.
Sorry.
Over $5,000, if we were given a donation or a grant, that it would have to be approved by the board in an open meeting. So,
Right, so no bribes being made either. And
so if at any time we were gifted money or anything like that over $5,000, that we would acknowledge that in a public meeting, so.
and that's all transparent, as are these numbers, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate this.
Okay, so do we have any more comments regarding the rebranding process? So I think that the general thing is that we're looking for submissions for logos. So I'm excited to see what some of our creative students and community come up with. Does anyone else have any additional comments for this part of the meeting? No? Okay. Moving on to comments from the public. Start with Sharon, is it Roshak?
I didn't sign up for a comment.
Oh, okay. Lisa?
Nope.
Nope. Margaret Brum?
Hello? Okay. Good evening. My name is Margaret Brum. I live at 404 East Magnetic Street. I'm here representing myself. My first matter is to introduce myself to members of the board. I have been to multiple city meetings, county meetings, you name it, meetings in the last years. I've yet to attend a board meeting, and tonight is my first school board meeting. So I'm Margaret Brum. I graduated from Marquette Senior High School in 1975. The reason I'm here is to introduce myself, also to let people know the progress of the work that I'm doing, and to encourage this board to put a pause on the name change and to schedule an election where members of MAPS, who fund the schools through taxes, have a chance to vote on the name change. That is my goal, my only goal, and why I'm doing everything that I'm doing. There's been a lot of interviewing of me. I can't think of any news station I haven't spoken to, or the Mining Journal. There was a letter in the Mining Journal tonight talking about things. First of all, let me put you at ease. I do not yet have any intellectual property rights that I could assert against this board or anyone in this school. Application is not a registration, and until intellectual property rights are registered, there's nothing you can do. So it's going to take many, many months before the registrations are squared away. Nevertheless, the process has begun. I've been instructed to communicate with your attorney, and I did so today. And since this will be on Facebook tonight, I thought I would give you the courtesy of the heads up. There have been 2 federal U.S. trade applications filed, one for the use of the mark Marquette Sentinels, believe it or not, on t-shirts. And the other one filed over the weekend for the use of the mark Marquette Sentinels as a service mark for educational services. That's a different categorization. Trademarks come in different categories. In addition to the federal trademark applications filed, I have also filed 2 state trademark applications which have broader applicability. And I know you're looking at me going, huh? Because state trademark applications have not been that commonly used since the Lanham Act in 1946 allowed for people to register one mark in every state. But Michigan has a vibrant state trademark system, and I filed 2 trademark applications in the state. One for the use of Marquette Sentinels on clothing. It's much broader than the federal mark, which is for just t-shirts. And one for the use of Marquette Sentinels on educational services. Therefore, people have asked me, what do I mean by my phases? Phase 1 was the first trademark application, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4 have been the subsequent ones. There will be additional phases as time progresses until such time as something changes. I don't know another way to put it like that. In the meantime, my reasons for doing all of this have been adequately recited in the news. I found it interesting, I heard tonight, and maybe I've got this wrong, but you're supposed to be reporting grants or donations of upwards of 5,000. You indicated today, I thought I heard 1,000 t-shirts have been distributed in the schools, and the average price for a t-shirt that I'm aware of is $20 a t-shirt. So I believe that you would be required to report the donors who enabled you to provide those t-shirts by your own rules. I mean, that's what I heard tonight, and if I'm wrong on that, I'm sorry somebody's shaking their head. It wasn't, I'm just saying, I'm hearing and learning as time goes on. This is my first time back in the high school this century. It's still there. Somebody said, are you looking for the library? I said, I know it's upstairs. So it's my first meeting here. It will not be my last. And rest assured that this is not, somebody wrote in and said, the last thing we need is federal litigation. I agree. The last thing anyone needs is federal litigation. I'm acquiring property rights in applications in order to enhance my ability to negotiate with this board. That's all I'm doing. And I look forward to further negotiations, especially about the branding and the cost thereof, because I have extensive experience with rebranding, and I will be following up on that. I thank you for your courtesy and for your time, and it's nice to meet all of you. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to board member comments. We'll start with Mrs. Maddox Smith.
I don't have too much to say. I'm looking forward to looking through the Truen policy and just looking at the differences, and excited to tackle that project. As far as the rebranding goes, I am pretty excited to see what our community comes up with. Just on the name change alone, I think we have like 2,200 submissions. So I'm looking forward to the creativity of our students and our great community. And I want to thank our community for handing out t-shirts today to our kids in Spirit Week. That's amazing. We live in a great place and a lot of great people. I want to thank the board for all their hard work and good discussion.
Mr. Zdunek.
No additional comment right now, thank you.
Mrs. Klipp.
Yeah, I'm very excited whenever we can hear what kids have to say. Just clarification, if I'm understanding the conversation early, it's a single donation of $5,000 or more, and these three t-shirts were a result of multiple donations from members of our community. So that is a donation we would have to report out. Secondarily, votes on a ballot are different than polls and surveys. And when we do when I did a deep dive into how we get ballot items on a ballot, they're for 3 general reasons, and only 3 reasons. You can put something on the ballot to change the Michigan Constitution. You can put something on a ballot for an actual election, to change a law, or to tweak an existing law, when that would include ordinances and millages. So those are the only 3 types of elections that election committees or ballot issues will be approved by election committees. I am so excited for our kids who continue to impress me and do the right thing. I understand we had a pretty good basketball game last Friday, so that's very exciting. And as always, thank you to Superintendent Sedgwick and President Cambenzi and the board at large. Thank you.
Ms. Ray.
I really appreciate the process that we continue in this. Doing a meeting of the whole, again, it comes back to us being able to have discussions which did not happen prior to this change. And it's just been an obvious shift in how the board functions as a whole, which I really appreciate, because I think everyone brings thoughtful comments to the table. So I'm really enjoying this, and I feel like it's been the best thing for the community at large in the way of transparency and understanding and hearing what we all have to say. So thanks again for putting this in place. But that's really it. Kind of ditto to what everyone else has said. Thanks.
Mr. Hewitt?
No additional comments, thanks.
Mr. Sarka?
All right, so I'm gonna end on a good note, kind of an upbeat note. I had a friend recently who was in, oh, thank you. I think it was at Black Rocks, and this isn't an ad for Black Rocks, just where it happened. And he was listening to a conversation people were having about the name change, and the one of the things he overheard was somebody say, you know, why does Glenn Sarka care so much about this? He's going to be dead soon anyways. And when you hear something like that, and it certainly hit my friend hard, it's kind of a gut punch. But I'd like to think of it as kind of an opportunity, because it's a legitimate question to ask, why does a board member care so much about something? I think what it misses in the issue, and maybe it's an issue the person missed because they don't have somebody in their life who's had cancer or is going through it at the time. But I want to tell you a couple things about cancer and how that plays into my decision. I think the first mistake this person made, and I'm not angry at the person, and I'll get to that in a second. First thing I think they get wrong about cancer is they see it as a weakness. Right, it's an excuse not to do something. It's an excuse to walk away from an important issue in your community. It's an excuse just not to give a shit. And I apologize for my language. What they don't understand, and again, I think they would understand if they have somebody in their life with cancer, is it's not a weakness, it's a superpower. It's not a reason not to do something, it's a reason to do something right. A lot of people have looked at this board and said, you know, why aren't you doing something more important for the district? And here's the thing, we've done this important thing for the district when we were doing all the other stuff for the district. We showed up and did our job here, and then we put in hour after hour after hour into this, not because we weren't doing something else, we were doing it in addition to that. The fact that I did it when I went through now 16 months of chemo, and I had a 14-hour surgery for this, means I care. And there's a reason why I did it. I want to do it right. It's something I had experience in because I was in Afghanistan for 3 years and in Iraq for about a year. And I had to make decisions on a daily basis whether did I believe in it enough to risk my life every day. Was I going to make a trip to Kandahar because there had been a car bomb? Do I believe in what I was doing enough to risk my life to do that? And the answer was every day for 3 years, almost 4 years, was yes. Something I take seriously, and I put more time into it because of the risk and the amount of time we put into it. Now I want to circle back to the person who said that and was so cavalier about my death, and understanding that I've got a daughter, I've got parents, I've got a brother, I've got friends that certainly will be impacted by this. And the only thing I could think of is that that person, and this is directed at them, has a burden or is missing something that's greater than anything I'm going through right now. And I want to talk to that person. Come and talk to me. We'll have lunch. We'll have a beer. But if you can speak that cavalierly about somebody's death, you need me more than I need you. And I care about that, and I care about you, and we should have that discussion. And I just want everybody to think about that when they think about this decision and think we don't take it seriously. It doesn't impact us. It certainly does. And I want you to think about how much time we've put into this, not because we get, it's not entertaining. It's something we care about because we care about our community, everybody in the community. And we're trying as hard as we can to balance everybody's needs and look towards the students, okay? And as far as this idea and that, again, the transition, and I had a great story. I had a friend come up to me and he said his daughters went up to Calumet and they started the game, this was a couple weeks ago, started the game and they were Redettes. The only chairs they had were Redettes chairs. We haven't come up with any more chairs, right? They started the game, they played the game. At the end of the game, somewhere in the middle of the game, they found out we had made a decision to change the name. They ended the game with the Sentinels cheer. And that's how it is with kids. They went from one to the other, and they were proud to be Sentinels at the end of that game. And all I could say is, as far as are we going to change our decisions and thinking about the branding a little bit, is what kind of Sentinels would we be at the first sign of opposition? We take our helmet off and we turn away, right? What kind of Sentinels would we be if we, at the first sign of a 6-phase plan, sorry, Margaret, but as first sign of a 6-phase plan, we set our shields down and surrendered the field? And more importantly, what kind of Sentinels would we be if we extinguished the light at the first sign of a squall on the Big Lake? Certainly not Marquette Sentinels. Go Sentinels.
Well, I'm not going to comment after that. Announcements and other meetings, February 19th, 2024, no school for students. February 19th, 2024, regular meeting, 5:30 here in the library. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion and support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.